Equality bias means that in group decision-making, we often assign equal weight to the opinions of each group member, irrespective of their level of expertise or competence. The equality bias can occasionally lead majority rule systems astray. Opting for the majority's opinion is often comforting to group members because it diffuses accountability for potential decision errors and safeguards decision makers from social ostracization. When group members have comparable expertise and competence, using the equality heuristic can be a practical decision-making strategy because it decreases the cognitive burden on decision makers and minimizes group discord. However, we must proceed with caution during processes like sampling, tallying, eliciting opinions, and data collection. We must evaluate whether people's opinions be interdependent. We must consider whether their opinions should be treated with equal weight. In some cases, the collective can yield wisdom, but it's equally possible that wisdom to be confined to a minority. To harness the wisdom of the crowd, it's recommended to adopt a select crowd strategy, choosing people based on their expertise, skills, and knowledge, and then averaging their opinions rather than attributing equal weight to everyone. It's important to remember that even in an era inundated with data, evidence, ratings, reviews, and assessments, tallying and averaging a multitude of views can lead to less than optimal decisions. When we assign equal weight to the opinions of both experts and non-experts, we fail to capitalize on the group's expertise. Some leaders are keen on democratic ideals or majority rule. It's important to remember that a heightened group consensus cannot and should not be equated with the accuracy or quality of a decision. Just because a proposal is endorsed by a majority does not necessarily mean it is a good proposal. In scenarios like school board meetings and most group meetings, decisions are typically made by opting for the choice supported by the majority vote. If the voting members' expertise and competence are not considered, the majority could go off the course when making decisions, similar to the blind leading the blind. Instead of attaching equal weight to everyone's opinion, it's important to identify who the experts are and whose confidence to rely on. The adage that two heads are better than one does not always hold true. When someone is introduced as an award-winning fill in the blanks, it may be worth questioning how was the award chosen? What was the nomination process? What was the voting process like? Who held the voting power? If the decision was made by a committee, what were the motivations of voting members to serve on the committee? Did each voting member have expertise on the relevant issues? Were secret ballots used? All awards are not created equal. Without a transparent and rigorous award nomination and selection process, winning an award can be diminished to a popularity contest or blatant self-promotion tactics. Howard Zinn once stated, "Majorities can be wrong. Majorities can overrule the rights of minorities. If majorities ruled, we could still have slavery. 80% of the population once enslaved 20% of the population. Well, run by majority rule that is okay. That is a very flawed notion of what democracy is. Democracy has to take into account several things: proportionate requirements of people, not just needs of the majority, but also needs of the minority. The majority, especially in societies where the media manipulates public opinion, can be totally wrong and evil. People have to act according to conscience and not by majority vote. Certain leaders convene committees to make group decisions after they've already arrived at their preferred outcome, such as hiring a particular candidate, offering a contract to a preferred vendor, or choose a specific curriculum. The committee serves as a safety net for those leaders to avoid accountability when things go wrong. Some leaders, in an attempt to manipulate or positively phrased to influence group decision towards their preferred choice, purposely invite people who do not have subject matter expertise and encourage the loudest voices, which conveniently align with the leader's favored option. To dominate the discussion and deliberation, that is, exploiting the availability bias. As a result, leaders can argue that the group decision was made via a democratic process. If the outcome is successful, leaders take credit, praising their trust in the group decision. However, when the results are disappointing, leaders distance themselves from the decision, placing the blame on the group or at least its majority. They argue that they were simply following the group's consensus. This is one of many reasons that the shared decision-making does not always yield high-quality decisions. Several terms exist in leadership literature that address shared decision-making, such as collective decision-making, participative decision-making, and democratic decision-making. Despite differences in terminology, the shared decision-making approach does have its strengths, notably in mitigating individual decision-makers' biases. The diversity in viewpoints and the methods through which a group decision is made are important in counteracting individual decision-makers' biases. However, diverse groups are not devoid of challenges and potential pitfalls. Jennifer Eppelhart points out in her book, Biased, Uncovering the Hidden Prejudice that Shapes What We See, Think, and Do. With diversity, we have growing pains. Privilege shifts, roles change, new voices emerge. Diverse groups of people are not always the happiest group of people. To reduce equality bias in shared decision-making, it's important to evaluate people's opinions based on their expertise and competence when you decide with whom you'd like to share your decision-making power. This raises more questions. How can we accurately judge someone's expertise and competence? How much trust should we place in committee members' self-reported claims of expertise and competence? The answer? Not much. People with low competence often overestimate their abilities, oblivious to their own limitations. Remember, bias blind spot. They do not know what they don't know. On the other hand, many competent people tend to underestimate their own abilities. With true expertise, they know what they don't know. They recognize uncertainty and are aware of the limitations of their own capabilities, even when they are highly competent. Humility is a virtue. Finding the balance between accurately evaluating expertise and combating equality bias is no easy task. Do not solely rely on self-reported claims. Instead, we can seek objective evidence, consider track records, evaluate demonstrated skills, and gather input from multiple sources. Start observing your decision-making process and those of others around you. See if you can spot instances of the equality bias. Please feel free to share your comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.